Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on which time zone you're in. And if you've lived where I've lived beyond the international date line, good day to you, even though it is a different day. Welcome to Send the Light, and we hope to help you in your Christian walk, give you some Bible verses to think about, some Bible verses to help you defend the faith. Somewhere, hopefully, in your Christian life, you will run into some people who are not believers in the Bible at all, people that are not saved, people who are in the cults, and you be able to show them from the Word of God what they need to know about who God is, how man is a sinner, and how man needs salvation, because that's very important, and that's what these podcasts are all about. So today I'm going to start in Genesis chapter 1, and we're going to start looking at the Trinity again. We've already done 2 sessions on Old Testament, the New Testament. Now we're going to look at how we find that there's more than the one, that somehow there's 3 persons who are the one true God. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, in the beginning, God. Now, I found something startling. It wasn't even in the King James Bible, but I was reading something else, another translation that's not readily available. And the person took that in the beginning God and made it exactly what it is in the Hebrew. Now, when a person translates, a lot of times their beliefs show up in the translation because that's just the way it's going to be. And we believe that there is one God. And so in the King James Bible, it is in the beginning God. But actually in the Hebrew, that's in the plural, Elohim. Now, the word El means God. Israel, it means prince with God. It's the only country in the world where God is actually in the title of the nation. Israel, El, one God, singular. I am ending to it, Elohim, makes it plural. And in fact, you have seraph as singular, seraphim is the I am ending, and that's the plural. Cherub is the singular, cherubim is the plural, that I am ending again. So we have that happening throughout the scriptures where God describes himself as more than one in a plural form, but he also describes himself as one. So here we are, Genesis chapter 1. I want to go to verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And so God's talking to who? When you talk about Bible context, Bible interpretation, a Bible context, one of the things you have to look at is who is talking to who. If God promises to Abraham a land and a place to live, that doesn't mean that you and I have that exact same privilege that Abraham has to declare that same land as ours. But God gave that to Abraham, and we can find where he did that, and that's the context of it. Here God is saying, let us make man in our image, us and our. And the word God is in the singular, so who is he talking to? Angels? Well, angels aren't who he's talking to. Man is limited to a place, a time, a body. I can't be on the other side of the world at the same time as I'm right here. I can't talk to more than one person at a time probably, or they can't talk to me for me to understand them. And angels, even though they seem to have a spiritual body, are also limited evidently in their body that they have to go from one place to another. You find that God sends an angel to mankind, and he's make a travel. The book of Daniel, there's an angel who came to bring a message, and he's delayed because another demon angel stops him, and they evidently fight. And another angel comes along and helps him out and rescues him, and he gets to finally come down and bring the message some 3 weeks after the initial to go and give the message. So angels also are restricted to particular time and place. God, on the other hand, is somebody who is not restricted at all. God is a spirit. And Jesus said, wherever you 2 or 3 are gathered together, there am I in the midst of them. And so I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but let's assume that you're part of, say, an independent Baptist churches. There's 5,000 in the South that I know of on and there's more and there's more independent Baptist churches in the north and elsewhere. So they all meet on Sunday morning. And God says, I'm going to be there. How's he going to be at 5,000 different locations at one time? That's not a problem to God. And while he's here in this country, in these locations, he's also with churches that meet elsewhere around the world, no matter where they are. He's not limited by time. He's not limited by place. And while he's listening to all of our prayers and what's going on, he's also 10 billion light years away, holding the universe together and the stars that are out there, keeping them from blowing up. And he does all of that. So he is a magnificent God, a powerful God. And here he's saying, let us make man in our image. So who is he talking to? Who is us and who is our? Well, in the next verse, he actually gives the answer to that. So God created man in his singular own image. So we find that at first he's saying, let us make man in our image. Then he turns around and said he made man in his image. And so there's more than one God, that they are talking to each other, and they decide to make man and how they're going to make him. Then we also find in the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, that he's in the temple and he sees the Lord Jehovah in, let's see, verse 5, Isaiah says, Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. So here he is seeing Jehovah God, that's the name of God, and he says, I am a sinner. And he considers himself a sinner. Some people think that they're pretty good people because somehow they get to heaven because all of their sins they've gotten rid of somehow on their own. Doesn't work that way. It says, then verse 6, Then flew one of the seraphims, there's the plural, unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And he said, and he laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this has touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. Also then, Isaiah writes, Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? So he is saying, I am in the temple, I see Jehovah God, and then Jehovah says, Who shall I send, and who will go for us? And there you have the plural again. And again, it's the idea that there is more than one. In fact, there are three that claim to be in that title of Jehovah God, and we will look at that here in just a second. Isaiah chapter 45 again or so. Got to go to it. This is one of the verses I gave in a prior podcast. Isaiah chapter 44 and verse 24 says, I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth abroad the earth by myself. And I pointed out before that God's saying he made it all by himself. He didn't have any help, and he did it by himself. And the person talking there is Jehovah God. Now, if you go to the New Testament, you want to go to the book of John, chapter 1, and we find in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So there's a problem for the Jehovah's Witness. They have to totally rewrite it with the rule that they violate in this chapter about 4 or 5 times at least, more than that. But here the Word was God, the same as in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and that person that is the Word is Jesus Christ. And without him was not anything made that was made. So we find that Jesus Christ is the creator of the universe, and yet it says that Jehovah God did it in the Old Testament. And there's only one way that can be true, and that is that Jesus Christ is the Jehovah God. And then we find in the book of Colossians, chapter 1, and verse 15, who is the image of the invisible God, talking about Jesus, the firstborn of every creature, for by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. So we have here a verse that's relating Jesus Christ to the Creator, being the Creator, and he did it all. He created everything we can see, the universe, the heavens, and the earth. So as you begin to think about the Trinity, these are some verses that'll begin to stick your mind outside of the idea of just one God. There are some people, and I've met them, that only believe that there's one God, that Jesus Christ is not a God, and that somehow he's something else. But how do you create a universe? How do you create all the stars if you're not all-powerful and are God? And Jesus is here, according to this, the creator of the universe, of everything that we see. So again, Jesus has to be that Jehovah of the Old Testament.